Hi there! Today we are looking at the original pole shift story as it turns up in different versions around the world. And this story is possibly best illustrated in Chinese philosophy because there is literally a diagram which shows the primordial arrangement of the poles and the current day arrangement of the poles. But there is this story as to why this pole shift happened, and it's described as a love story, or more like the original marriage breakup. And the story turns up around the world in different versions. So this story is interesting for a few reasons. I mean, it's got a story about the Mother Earth goddess archetype, and we don't have a lot of stories which talk about her and her personality. So the story is quite interesting for anyone whose Orisha is Oba. It's interesting because it's also got comparative mythology. So we see how the story has morphed a little bit around the world, but everyone thought the story was really important, so they kept telling it. And this is the stuff that our history is contained in myths and legends, and these myths and legends are stories about the gods. So it's interesting to just chronicle this little bit of our history, the history of our ancestors. Now, the way this story works, it's old-fashioned storytelling. Old-fashioned storytelling was before we had YouTube, before we had 3-minute edits, so it's a little bit long form, and I'm not really making it for that format, but I'm just putting these stories out there onto the internet because I said I would in my video about the Earth archetype, and it's a little bit of our ancestral history. So here we go, 3 versions of the original pole shift story from around the world. And the first story I'm telling you today is from Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I'm from. And it goes a little something like, in the beginning there was nothing, there was darkness, it was unfulfilled potential. And out of that chaos came light, and out of that light solidified Mother Earth and Father Sky. Now, Earth and Sky were happy together in a tight embrace for hundreds and hundreds of years, happy making all of these children, all of the gods. And incidentally, all of these gods happened to be male. It was the original patriarchy. But while their parents, Heaven and Earth, were happy, their children not so much, because they were squashed in between their parents. They couldn't move, it was cramped, they couldn't see the light. So they decided that they wanted to live, they wanted more from their existence, and they figured they're going to have to do something about their situation. So what they did is they got together and they had a meeting. And they decided what they were going to have to do is separate their parents. But how do you separate heaven and earth? Well, they were gods, so they were going to use their god powers to try and separate their parents. So the first god to step up and try and separate heaven and earth was the god of the sea. And the god of the sea created the biggest seas you could imagine. Scary waves, massive storms, did nothing to the parents. Their parents' love was strong. Next god to try and separate the parents was the god of war. And because he was the god of war, he basically tried to kill his parents. He slashed and he hacked and he made all of the rivers and the valleys which exist on earth, but even the violence, even a fight wasn't going to separate heaven and earth. Their love was really strong. Next came along the god of the forest, who was basically a tree. And he did what all trees did, which is not very much, but he did what he was doing as a tree for a very, very long time. So he put his roots into the ground and his branches up into the sky, and ever so slowly, year after year, he grew taller and taller. Ever so slowly pushing the heavens up away from the earth, until after hundreds and hundreds of years, there was this massive gap in between heaven and earth, and the light could finally come in and shine light on earth so they could see what was going on. And the sky god looked down at his wife, who was now out of reach, and he missed her. He started crying tears of rain. And Mother Earth, she could see her partner up in the sky out of reach, and she started crying too. Tears welled up as the oceans and rivers, and the gods had a new problem on their hands because there was a massive flood happening, and if they didn't do something soon, they were all going to drown. So they got together, had another meeting, and they decided what they were going to have to do is flip Mother Earth over so she couldn't see her ex-husband and he couldn't see her face anymore. And so they did that. They flipped her upside down and they saw that she was naked, so they covered her in flowers and trees and birdsong, garments befitting of the goddess. And that's how the world started in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Now, over in Greece, it starts basically the same way. In Greece, in the beginning, there was nothing. It was dark, it was unfulfilled potential, it was chaos, and out of that chaos came light, and out of that light came heaven and earth. Earth, her name is Gaia, and the god of the heavens, his name is Uranus. And Gaia and Uranus were happy together for hundreds and hundreds of years in a tight embrace, making all of the gods. It's just that Uranus, he was king of the gods by the way, he didn't quite like the look of some of his children. They were giving him a bit of an uneasy feeling, like he just wished that some of them hadn't been born, that they'd go back to where they came from. So what he did is he shoved these unwanted children back into Gaia, which hurt her both physically and emotionally. And she was pretty angry and she wanted revenge. So what she did is she created a sickle out of adamantium, this epic weapon, and she gave it to her son Kronos. Kronos is the god of time and also of karma. So he was quite happy to help his mother out. And with that sickle of adamantium, he did to his father what time does to all kings and all men. First he took his virility, and then he took his life, which left the crown of King of the Gods free for Kronos to inherit. And Kronos wore that crown and ruled as King of the Gods for a golden age of peace and prosperity over Earth for many, many years. It's just that Kronos was always haunted by the knowledge that one day too his time would come. Now, over in Nigeria, the story is a little bit different and a little bit similar. So, this story is from Yoruban culture, and how it goes is the king of the gods, his name's Shango, he's king of the gods, he's king of thunder, and his wife is called Oba, and she's the goddess of marriage. And Shango made Oba his wife because she was everything a queen is meant to be. She was beautiful, intelligent, capable. She was every part the ruler. Her name means queen, it means ruler. And Shango was happily married to Oba for a long time, but Shango wanted more than one wife. So after Oba, he married Oshun, the goddess of love, and after Oshun, he married Oya, the goddess of justice. Now, there's different versions as to which goddess did the dirty on Oba, but because I'm telling the story, I'm saying it's Oshun because Oshun was the next goddess in the house, and sometimes love can be a bit of a bitch. So, the way the story goes is, one day, Oba took Oshun aside and said, Oshun, I've noticed that Shango seems to be enjoying your cooking a little bit more than mine recently. Would you be a friend and tell me what your secret is? And Oshun said, oh, okay, this is a little bit weird, but a while back I cut a little bit of my ear off and I dried it, and whenever it's my turn to cook for Shango, I take that bit of dried ear, grate a little bit off, put a pinch of that in his food, and it makes him go wild for me. He can't get enough. And Oba's like, wow, thanks for that. And she thought to herself, if that's what a pinch would do, she was going to give Shango a whole lot. So the next time it was Oba's turn to cook for Shango, she cut off her ear and she put it in a soup. And when Shango saw that ear floating in a soup, he freaked out. He was grossed out. He was like, this is not cool. And he divorced her on the spot and kicked her out of the house. End of story. So where this leaves us with all these three stories is it doesn't tell us who this goddess marries next. This goddess is the goddess of earth. She's the goddess of abundance. She's the goddess of marriage. And she's a goddess. It's not like she's going to stay single for forever. And so often with these myths, it's the gaps which tell us where to look next. So we cover that information in the rest of the series, but that's the original pole shift story from around the world. And it's just there in that little video. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.